long last succeeded in making America safe for chest voice. I have my doubts. Many listeners, not those to this show, I'm sure, find that it curdles their blood in an unacceptable way. Mm-hmm. Have you found people hostile to your liberal employment of chest?
Very definitely. Absolutely. They think that it's unnatural, that it's not part of the voice. However, I beg to differ with them. I think if it's done properly vocally, particularly in a role like Lady Macbeth, where she's saying horrible things about blood and vengeance, one does not have a pretty sweet sound, and I will use chest until it's taken away from me by powers above. I don't feel that it's in any way wrong to use chest voice.
Veteran listeners will, I hope, forgive me for repeating stuff I said long ago here. The castrati made generous use of chest voice, sometimes singing complete arias in it. Many of them, the contralti, had more than an octave of usable chest resonance. Using chest literally damaged your throat.
Hardly. I mean, I don't know how many people can say that you're ruining your voice if you can still sing up to an E flat above high C and sing it comfortably. You see, I think the problem with the chest voice is, particularly in a soprano's voice, people mistrust it because a soprano, per se, is not supposed to be able to sing those notes in any way so that they will carry, of which we have many examples today, that people go out and you hear wonderful sounds and then suddenly F and down below middle C, it sounds like the sound has dropped off, particularly in a large house, in a certain voice. However, the point being, I feel chest voice is very important in the use of a role. And after all, if you're singing an operatic role, you are not that person. You're not yourself. You are that personage, and you use it for dramatic effect. And the point is, you use it correct vocally.
What does that mean?
Well, in other words, it's still in the basic technique, and you don't yank it out from someplace. It's in the basic line of your voice.
Do you sing all notes from the F above middle C down in chest?
F above middle C?
Yeah.
No, that you're talking about F going down.
Yes, going downwards to sing.
If it's for effect, not always.
Yeah, not always.
If I'm singing Schubert Lieder, I don't necessarily do chest voice there. But it comes in naturally. I wouldn't say that it's manufactured.
Is there a point at which you always go into chest, a point in your range?
I don't get up in the morning and say, well, I'm going below this note on this C, on this particular. No. It has to do with what I'm singing in the particular role I'm singing. I don't calculate and say, I'm always going to sing chest on this note. No.
Is it a decision that you make when you're doing, say, Lady Macbeth, that I'll do such and such a passage with chest resonance?
Well, hopefully when you do a role, when you perform a role, you know what you're going to do before you go on stage.
Yes.
It doesn't, nothing I do comes out accidentally on stage. I know what I'm doing when I go out on the stage.
Is it something that
it's a prepared thing. It's like anything else. If a person is baking a cake, they put all the ingredients into the recipe and they make a cake. If you're doing a role, you study it, you go over it in your voice, and you know exactly what you're doing, hopefully.
Is it something that you have a particular physical way of getting into, to clench your left buttock in order
No, look, I think as far as getting into the technical part of what I do to make a chest sound, I think I don't think every singer should discuss what they do technically. It's a matter of their equipment. People come to hear a singer for certain things. And I think that they're disappointed if they don't hear a singer do certain things.
Do you think that it's not a good thing when the fans do as they did with Tebaldi and remark, oh, there she is, cupping her ear in order to hear herself better? Do you think that people become self-conscious if you tell too much about your secrets?
I think fans are wonderful per se, but they do, they discuss what they want to hear, what they want to see, and I don't think as a performer you can keep people from saying what they want to say. I don't think that should affect a performer, however.
You sounded what seemed to be a note of disparagement with the words pretty singing.
In the sense that I keep coming back to the role of Lady Macbeth. Lady Macbeth is not a sweet girl next door. And you can't have very lovely lyrical singing all the time you're singing Lady Macbeth. It's that simple.
What have critics made of your willingness to sound ugly, if need be, if you feel the...
Some people like it and some people don't. But again, I don't think any performer must be swayed by what a critic says. If you feel that you're doing a role and doing it honestly, and you are portraying it, and that will come across. You cannot please, the whole world. You have to do what you think is proper for your interpretation, for your particular voice.
How did you become Marisa Galvany? Where did it all start? Did you start singing early?
Oh, well, how far back do you want to go?
The womb!
Not quite. No, I studied piano, and I started singing. I was the canary in elementary school. I sang all of the solos. And at a very early age, I decided that I wanted to sing opera.
Do you still play piano?
Yes, that's how I learn my roles. I start punching out the notes myself before I work it with a coach.
You must have a lot less wear and tear being able to learn at the keyboard.
Well, I think it's a lot easier. I don't know how a singer cannot... There are many singers, of course, that don't play, and they have to learn it with someone punching out notes for them. It certainly is easier for me, knowing the notes and knowing other people's roles. For instance, there are some singers who don't know the roles in the opera other than what they're singing. I tend to try to know what the other people are singing against me, so I know.
So, from the beginning, you wanted to be an opera singer. Looking and listening at you, I dare say that you were not inspired by a Jeanette MacDonald movie.
Well, I don't know. No, as a matter of fact, I was really inspired. The Metropolitan Opera, I think still has student performances where they took schools to the performances. And I was in high school, and I came to see a performance of La Bohème, I believe it was, and was absolutely carried away by what was going on the stage, and decided this was a wonderful way to communicate with people.
Did you get an emotional bang out of it? What were
Well,
your
it's
feelings?
simply that opera is such a complete art. It's visual, it's oral, it's orchestra, it's everything, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And since I already had feelings towards that, I decided that's what I wanted to do.
What was your next step?
Well, as it turned out, fate stepped in. I had my appendix removed, and the doctor had as a patient a pupil of the then Dr. William Herman, who was one of the reigning teachers at that point. And he arranged an audition for me, and that was it.
So somehow having your appendix out furthered
Started
your ambitions
everything.
as a singer. Yes. Did you go to school, or did you...
I did not get a degree, no. I
abandon
studied
all
everything
of that in
privately.
order to- Yeah.
And I had various teachers. I've had my present teacher for the last 20 years.
How'd you make your pro debut?
Actually, my professional debut, at which I had to join the union, believe it or not, I did Blanche in Dialogues the Carmelites at the... it was in Newburgh, and Salvatore Baccaloni was the director at the time. However, I would say the beginning of my career was in 1969 when I sang Tosca in Seattle. You see, I never did nurse roles or companion roles. I plunged in with the big roles immediately.
Did that happen as a result of auditioning?
Yes, I auditioned.
I think what we're going to be hearing now is from early in your career.
Oh,
is
yes.
it not?
This was from a recital, which I did in Paterson, New Jersey, with my teacher Armand Boyajian playing for me. It was the first time ever I tackled this aria in public, and we put it on, not with trepidation, but it was kind of a fun, nervous time, because when I walked out on the stage, people knew what was coming, and there was a great deal of attention, what I was about to do with this aria, because, as you know, it's a very tough aria. So it was the first time I'd ever sung it in public.
What makes it tough?
Well, you're on, you open your mouth, and within 5 seconds, you're singing a high C that plunges down 2 octaves. And then you have great leaps from bottom to top and down again. And then, of course, the cabaletta, it just goes on and on and on. And I put an E flat at the end of it. It's not written that way, but that's the way I did it.
It sounds as if the aria couldn't have been better chosen, given what I think the world has perceived as your strengths, your top and your booming bottom.
Well, as I say, being that this, I frankly have forgotten what this has sounded like. I'm going to be listening to. It was the first time I had done it. As I recall, it came off quite well.
The tape that we're playing is courtesy From the sound of things, they liked you. That note at the end was
E
flat. An interpolation.
Yes.
Has City Opera, have other companies forbidden you those?
No. Every time I've sung the role, I've put an E flat in. Sometimes there's a little flack to discuss it, but then they realize it's quite exciting.
And what of the ornamenting of the cabaletta repeat? Has that been a problem?
Well, many times I don't do the repeat, so there's no problem.
Do you think that the battle, by and large, has been won, the battle for ornamentation, or have you run up against conductors who have said no?
It's really half and half. It really is up to the individual conductor. I present what I have, and then there's a discussion whether we will or we won't do it. And if it's valid not to do it, we don't do it. If it's valid to do it, we do it.
Do you ultimately accede?
It's not a question of acceding. I think if you decide on the merits of the performance and what you're trying to accomplish in the performance, I don't think it's a battle. Some people try to make a battle of it. I've always felt that if it's for the benefit of the performance, the right things wins out for the performance.
Adelaide Negri's behind not long ago graced the very chair in which you're now sitting. She recounted how she had difficulties with this kind of thing. Either you go or I go, conductors have told her, over ornamentation, variations, interpolations. In Ernani at the Met, she wanted to interpolate a high D in the trio. Jimmy said no. Have you had comparable experiences?
I've never had anybody say to me, either it's you or me. No. I've, as you said, exceeded. I've had to go both ways, where a conductor at first didn't want me to do something, and I presented it to him in the format that we were working, and he said, fine, we can do it that way.
What about the Muti mentality?
I've not worked with Mr. Muti, so I don't know.
Yes, so you've not run up against those who feel that they're doing the composer a favor by insisting that only the notes found on the printed page be sung?
Well, I think, as I say, I don't know Mr. Muti, so I can't say about that, but I think that sometimes if that is done in a live performance, I'm not talking about recorded performance, in a live performance, it can be very boring. It takes away a great deal of the excitement. And it also depends, I don't think there should be a general rule for every singer. It all depends on the singer with whom you're working. And what they bring to the particular role and what they do not bring to it. Some people can attempt to do certain things, and they do not succeed because they haven't got the oomph behind it. It's that simple. I don't think there should be a blanket rule for all performers. I think it should be what the individual can do and what it brings to the opera itself.
What became of you after Tosca? Tosca, 1969 in
Well, I
Seattle.
did the Medea in Corinto with Newell Jenkins here in New York.
Yes, I was there. That must have been around 70.
No, it was around the same time. When we did one or two performances at Alice Tully Hall. It was the first time that they had used Alice Tully Hall for a fully staged performance, and then we recorded it in between performances and did another performance because the public liked it so much.
Yes, I was at that second.
It was a
evening.
very
It was quite
exciting
something, yes.
thing, and I've gotten a lot of fans from the recording because it's wonderful music. It's the real bridge between the Italian-German school.
That was an opera by...
Simone Meyer, who is the teacher of Donizetti.
And when Donizetti lifted some music from Meyer and we reworked it and used it in one of his own operas, Meyer felt that Donizetti had honored him. Self-plagiarism, all kinds of plagiarism was perceived
Incidentally,
differently.
this Medea in Corinto was written for Giuditta Pasta.
She was famous in that.
Yes. Artist owes to a public a complete performance. That if there's a note here and there in a performance that is not quite up to everybody's snuff, if the whole performance is really exciting and where the person walks out really feeling that they've seen something and heard something, that's it. On the other hand, if you go to see a performance or hear a performance and everything is very beautiful and very lovely, and you walk out and you say, so what? That's equally as bad. What did it say? What did it say to you? What did the performer do to you? I've had people come backstage. I did a performance of Tosca at City Opera, and people would come back and say, this is my first opera. I didn't understand the performance. I didn't understand the libretto per se, but I knew what you were doing. I knew exactly what you were trying to say. This is what I think a performer's responsibility is to the public.
Did those performances provide a stepping stone, and that recording, did anything follow in their wake?
Well, the Medea in Corinto got a lot of playing locally, and a lot of people were attracted to it, and came to see me subsequently at my performances at City Opera because of the recording.
When did you get into City Opera?
1972.
Was that a consequence of the clarinet concerts?
No, I wouldn't say that. I said when I was there, people came to see me because of the fact that they had heard me on the recording. Because I made my debut in Maria Stuarda.
As a result of auditioning for
I had auditioned
with John White?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
How many times did it
7
take?
times.
7 auditions?
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine why it took them that long to make up their minds?
I have no idea. You'll have to ask them.
But you persevered and endured.
Indeed, as I have my whole career.
Is that the secret?
Yes. Tenacity. And belief in oneself and belief in people around you who care for you and help you. But I'm not alone in that. There are a great many people who have had to do numerous auditions. So it's not me alone.
When did you get married?
When did I get married? How long ago?
Yeah.
Well, it's I've been married a nice few years, yes.
Yeah. How does he put up with all of this? All this persevering and enduring?
Well, he happens to love music,
Uh-huh.
which he knew when we got married. And he cares a great deal for my career and is very, very interested in my career. I'll give you an example. In 1976, I was in Strasbourg, France, for 8 weeks. I was doing Cavalleria Rusticana. I was terribly lonely and wrote to my husband that I was really unhappy being alone and I was missing him. And he wrote me a letter back, which I think states his feeling for my art and for art in general, in which he said he missed me terribly, but that my art belonged to everybody else, to the world, and not only to him, and it was my duty to share it with everybody. And that's his feeling about my performing.
All divas should have such husbands.
There was the only one. I'm afraid I've got him.
I can think of some who might want to make off with him.
I'm sorry.
Sympathetic diva husband. what took you to Mexico?
Well, this is also a story. One of the fans who had heard my recording of Medea in Corinto on the radio subsequently got in touch with me. His name is Nelson Llorente. He's a very dear friend now. He was a fan to start with, but he's a very, very dear friend now. And he wrote to me, and he came to my subsequent performances, and he knew people in Mexico. He knew the people that ran the opera, and wrote to them about me. And this performance of Aida came up, and they got in touch with Nelson. I was in Brevard, North Carolina at the time, performing, and I got a call, and he said, "You've got to go to Mexico." And I went to Mexico with Nelson and 10 other friends.
They hired you on the basis of the recommendation of a kind of Lois Kirschenbaum, then, without having heard you, a fan. That's all it took. They didn't have to, they didn't want a tape, they didn't want an audition.
Not at that point, no. But Nelson was very enthusiastic.
Well, a lot of people are enthusiastic.
But they knew him. They
yes.
knew him. You see, he wasn't...
So you went there, and you had some large and deep boots to fill. A couple of decades earlier, Callas had preceded you in Mexico City in that very part. Did that give you trepidation?
Well, when I arrived in Mexico, they asked me if I was about to do the same thing that Callas had done. And I must say, for me, whether I'm compared to Callas, I'm deeply honored if I am, because to me, there was one Callas, and there will only be one Callas. I don't think there will be another one. That was a unique talent.
One God, one country, one Callas.
Well, she was fantastic. One of the regrets of my life is that I never got to meet her and talk to her and discuss things with her, because she gave so much to the opera world that is so sorely lacking today. Well, when I got to Mexico, of course, she had done the E-flat, and they asked me if I was about to do it, and I said, well, we'll see. Of course I was about to do it, but I didn't say anything. So I just said, we'll see. And it was the performance in Mexico was an evening that, if I had written a scenario for myself, that's how I would have written it. It was a purely magical performance. Everything worked. The people around me, it was a gorgeous, stunning visual production. Costumes were beautiful. The orchestra was wonderful. The conductor was very much with me. And the atmosphere in the theater was one of frenetic energy, which happens once every few years. And the audience responded in such... I cannot begin to describe the roar that came from that audience. There were 8 papers in Mexico at that time, and the reviews looked as if I had written them myself. It was that kind of ambiance.
I remember at City Opera, at one of your Toscas, hearing the question posed, is there emotional life after Callas? To which someone rejoined saying, yes, Marisa GALVANY. We'll hear now that Mexico City Aida, whose E-flat is longer there, yours or Callas's?
I really don't know. I don't know.
How many seconds was that? How many bars?
I guess about 4 bars.
Can you tell further details about this pirate that we're listening to, who the others were, for example?
Oh, in the performance, it was Harry Theard as Radames, and Lily Chukazian was Amneris. It was a Mexican baritone whose name, I'm afraid, I do not remember.
Did all that enthusiasm further your career?
Well, I think that every performance an artist does furthers a career. It achieved, it certainly attracted a lot of attention. I was invited back to Mexico to sing Tosca the next year. I think everything you do in building a career, as you know, it's a very small world as far as opera is concerned. And what you do in one place is often talked about probably halfway around the world, particularly if something exciting happens. And that was a wonderfully exciting performance, not only on my part, as I say, everybody was so on, and everybody had this feeling of wonderful energy, that it was one of those magical evenings that happens. It's electricity, and the audience felt it. And because the audience was feeling it, they were responding to us, and we were feeling this over the footlights. And so you give even more.
What was the next milestone in your life as a performer?
Oh, my. Well, the milestone that I had was my debut at City Opera, where I debuted in Maria Stuarda. I did Queen Elizabeth. That was
Sills?
opposite Beverly, yes.
Uh-huh.
And that role became quite a fixture in my repertoire. That was also, when we did the performances together, the audience sort of went bonkers, because, again, the energy coming from the stage was wonderful.
Scott Marsh, a listener, called to declare, I've always found Galvany very exciting, especially in Maria Stuarda, Tosca, Nabucco, Attila, and at Tully Hall. Scott caught you in a concert there.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The Stuarda was exciting because, again, it's what I went back to before. There has to be a certain kind of energy coming from the stage, a certain kind of honesty in what you're singing. And that doesn't always happen, unfortunately.
Well, singers, vehement singers, in particular those who made use of chest voice, have often been poorly received here, more maybe by the critics in New York than the fans.
But I don't think that's anymore. I think it's coming. It's coming around a little bit more because more people are using it.
Do you think that were new Magda Olivero to come forward today, would she be written off by the critics as camp?
I think that any voice that is different from, say, A to C is average. Anything that's a little on either side is mistrusted at first because people have to listen. People go to opera and want to be bathed in sounds to which they're accustomed. And if they hear a voice that's a little different, with a little different interpretation, initially they mistrust it. They have to go hear it again. And I don't think today, I don't think as much as perhaps 10, 15 years ago. I think people are accepting more today.
Did you have a problem at some point with acceptance?
I don't, to my knowledge, my voice is not one, it's not, I call myself not Miss Silver Tonsils. I'm not Miss Silver Tonsils. It's a voice that you like. I've had people come to me after performances and say to me, gee, when I first started to hear you in the opera, I didn't like the way you sounded. But by the end of the performance, you really had me. It is not a usual sound, I grant that, but my vocal cords are my vocal cords. I can't do anything other than what I was given with and what I work with. I have not had a success with an audience. The audience has always responded wonderfully well.
Does it take them an act or two to warm to you?
Perhaps. Because on some occasions it takes me an act or two to warm up.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen so much these days, but perhaps it did. And I think that given the type of role also, there are certain roles, particularly, for instance, Nabucco, where Abigail comes out and immediately, is singing in the trio. That is very bravura singing. Sometimes a Puccini role other than Turandot, of course, you have to take a while to get into.
Did the City Opera? Well, before continuing with the chronological account of your career, has your voice changed particularly over the years?
I think it's gotten a little rounder and bigger, and I think there's more of a point and a focus. I think the voice is now blended into a line.
Is it lighter?
No,
heavier?
I don't think so.
About the same weight?
Yeah, it certainly has a way of getting through an orchestra. It has a point.
So you had arrived at City Opera, an established, ongoing, mainstream company. They re-engaged you.
Oh, I did a lot of performances there, yes.
Yeah. Are you still on the roster?
No, I'm not.
Is that through your doing or theirs?
Well, I haven't been asked to do anything since 82, I believe.
Quilico complained that Sills has a way of forgetting her friends.
Well, I don't know about that, but I haven't been offered something, so I don't sing there.
Are they not doing your repertory?
I can't say that, certainly, because they're certainly doing Attila this year and Norma.
Would Sills rather hire Deanna Durbin?
I don't know. You'll have to ask her that. I have no idea. She doesn't discuss her hiring policies with me. I don't know.
Well, after that Maria Stuarta debut, what then?
Well, I did a lot of traveling. I went to Europe. I sang not in any kind of extended stay. I would go as guest performances. I sang in France. I sang a great deal in Spain. I sang in Barcelona, Bilbao, Oviedo, Valencia. I went to South America. I sang in Venezuela. I sang in Brazil. I did a great deal of traveling, in addition to many of the companies in the United States.
How did you break in over there? Did that recording do it?
Through an agent, yes.
No. European agent?
Working through an agent from here, yes. Again, they hear of you. As I say, opera is a very small world, and people hear what you're doing. People do come into New York, they see you, and they keep you in mind for certain things. Plus the fact you get to be known for certain roles.
Yeah.
And if they are casting so-and-so, they know. The Macbeth that you played, which was a CBC television production with Louis Quilico, got a great deal of attention. And only recently they broadcast it here on the Bravo network. But it was broadcast throughout Canada a great deal. And that got to be very well known.
Shall we return to the Macbeth at this point and hear your sleepwalking scene?
Yes, this was done when we recorded this performance. It was not lip-synced, as some of them are. It was done as a live. It was not done on a stage. It was done in a set, as a movie would be done. But we did it live, and the particular excerpts that you have played, both the letter scene and the sleepwalking scene, were done in one take, with no splicing and no outtakes put in. They were done completely as you hear them.
One night Quilico and I were talking in the Rhapsody, and he said of my guest, Marisa GALVANY, there's a voice for Lady Macbeth. Marisa GALVANY, in the first 8 or 10 years of your career, you sang, I think, Italian opera all but exclusively. Mm-hmm. But after the CBC Macbeth, other repertory, other engagements beckoned, and you expanded your domain somehow.
Well, largely as a result of my appearing in City Opera in Maria Stuarda, Arthur Cosenda, who runs the New Orleans Opera, came to see me. And he was going to do La Juive with Richard Tucker. And he hired me to do Rachel. Well, this was one of the, you talked about highlights of my career. This has to be up on top as far as what I did, not only in doing the performance, but it was one of the most emotionally rewarding experiences I've ever had on the stage. Richard wanted to do this role so badly. As you know, he wanted to bring it into the many years. This role meant so very much to him that I remember sitting on stage in the Passover scene, not only I, but every member of the cast, weeping, copious tears, listening to this man do the Passover scene in the opera. And we would all stand, you very well know that when an opera is going on, not many colleagues stand in the wings listening to other people on stage at the same time. But all of us would stand in the wings listening to whatever he was doing on stage at that particular moment, because this man felt every single second. It was an incredible performance. We were supposed to do 3 subsequent performances with him in various cities, but of course, unfortunately, he died. But during the rehearsal period, he treated all of us like we were his particular charges. He would take us out every night. He would say, be careful, don't catch cold. I remember going into a cafe with him one night, and if you know New Orleans, it was one of those cafes where they had the overhead fans going constantly. And I remember we walked in one night, the place was just jammed with people, and he walked up to the proprietor and he said, I'm Richard Tucker, and these are all my friends, and we're all singing, and if you don't shut off those fans, we're all going to be sick and we won't be able to perform. So they shut off all the fans, and everybody sweltered, but Richard Tucker got his way. He was a wonderful man, he was a wonderful colleague, and I cannot remember many times on stage where I was so moved as actually to cry real tears on the stage while I was singing.
His watching over you so that you didn't catch cold might have had certain benefits. It could also perhaps have come to feel oppressive.
Oh, no, he was so sweet. Absolutely not. He was just so happy to be doing this opera because he had recorded excerpts of it in London, I think, the year before. And he was so happy with the cast. I was in it, Paul Pliska was in it, Rita Shane was in it. And he just was so pleased with the way everything... This was a project of his. It was his baby. And he was so happy the way it was received and the way it was rehearsed and the way everything went that he just felt that he wanted it to be a family thing, and it was. We were his family for that duration.
New Orleans re-engaged?
Oh, yes. I was subsequently re-engaged for Herodias and Les Huguenots, 3 years in succession. As you know, French opera in New Orleans is very popular. That was quite an experience because it was completely new works for me, and it was quite a challenge to learn them.
How many works in your repertoire?
How many roles do I do?
Yeah. Or have you never counted?
Oh, I'm not one of these singers that say I sang X role 75 times and I do X roles 40 times. I probably have about, within my grasp, and I mean where I could pick it up within a week or so and sing about 35 roles. But I've learned other things that I haven't performed. Certainly, you have to keep certain roles fresh that you keep doing over and over again. Lately, I've learned many new roles.
What are your mainstays?
Well, as a performer, I do most of the Verdi nasty ladies. I seem to have been put in a box. I do the nasty ladies, the crazy ladies. As a matter of fact, one of my ambitions before I stop singing, which I hope is not until the far future, is to do a role where I laugh on stage and where I have some comedy on the stage, because I'm always so tragic. I'm always responsible for killing someone or getting killed myself. I'm very unhappy on the stage all the time. So that's what I do. I have taken on, in 1982, I did my first Salome, which was my first German opera. As you can see, I don't pick easy things to do. And I did my first Ortrud this year in Lohengrin with the Met on tour.
Salome strikes me as the polar opposite from Lady Macbeth. One wouldn't think of Lady Macbeth as nubile, as somebody, a man couldn't keep his hands off.
True. That's true.
Use the same voice for both.
Well, we made a study of Salome. I worked on that opera a year. I had it with me constantly. I practically had it under my pillow and would catch myself perhaps in the market just standing and thinking about what I was going to do in a certain way. It was a role that I really worked.
Excuse me, Diva goes to the supermarket?
Unfortunately, yes, we have to eat.
Yeah.
It's a minor thing, but we do that occasionally.
Anyway, you took Salome with you to the supermarket.
I had it with me wherever I went because I was listening to it on the tape on my ears. I was listening to some performances of it. It was also quite a challenge for me. As a matter of fact, my husband very, very rarely gets nervous when I perform. He's very confident. He sits in the audience very confidently. And when we decided I was going to do Salome, one of the things that I would say worried him a bit was my doing a 12-minute dance on the stage, because I would say that I'm sort of Gertie Twinkletoes. I'm not exactly.
Oh, you'll listen.
But the longest ballet solo is only about 6 or 7 minutes. This is 12 or 13 minutes of you. And about a page after you finish singing, you have to stop. After you stop dancing, you have to sing again. So I took myself to a gymnasium and started to take aerobics and exercise to make sure that nobody would giggle terribly when I was on the stage dancing. It was wonderful. The costume was designed so that I had a body stocking that made me look nude.
Did your husband object to that?
I don't think so, no, not at all. I also had with me at the time my wonderful friend who we just lost, Charles Elson, and he did a beautiful makeup job so that he painted the body stocking so that it looked as if parts of the body were on the body stocking. And from the audience, in the light they had, I looked as if I were on stage absolutely nude. However, it was a body stocking because I don't think anyone over the age of 16 should appear on stage naked. So it worked out very, very well. It was, again, another evening where I was literally in tears at the end of the performance because I gave so much.
Where was this?
This was in Cincinnati. Jim DeBlaise, who runs the Cincinnati Opera, has been a wonderful friend to me as far as my career is concerned. I did my first Turandot with him. He suggested about my doing the Salome. He asked me if I wanted to do it. And I'm going to do my first Amneris with him this year.
Well, you've raised a number of interesting things. Why? Well, first of all, what about the color of the voice? Strauss declared that the perfect Salome would be Elisabeth Schumann, and he offered to rescore the work to accommodate her silvery tone. Did that kind of knowledge, if you had it, daunt you? Yours is a dark.
Oh, well, of course, you approach the Salome very differently. You have to do a lot of different kind of singing, a lot of different colors, and we worked so we could do it. I didn't just, as I say, okay, I'm going to sing Salome. We analyzed it, we worked it, and we changed a lot of passages. If I did it once, we didn't like it, we tried it again. I don't think that you have to say one voice can only do one thing. Why can opera singers do recitals? They surely don't approach leader singing as you do operatic roles. I don't think you have to say a voice can only do this. I think that the problem is perhaps in casting that you put only certain voices in B roles and only certain voices in C roles. I don't think that has to be. If you're an intelligent artist and a musician, I think you can. Naturally, I'm not about to do Brunhilde, but
Why
I think
not?
because I could sing every note, but I think who cares? I couldn't give it the proper intensity, I don't think.
Does it
Not
lie,
at this point in my life.
Does it lie uncongenially in the middle?
No,
Low
I
middle?
think just at this point, I don't want to do a heavy Wagnerian role like that.
For vocal reasons?
It's that
or
simple for what I'm doing
For vocal reasons, or it's not
in
you
the
like it?
growth of my vocal instrument, for where I am with my vocal instrument right now.
Where is that?
I don't want to pull down my top, which I still have very much at my command.
Then why Amneris?
Well, because Amneris was written in the original score. She's written as a dramatic soprano, if you see an original score.
You mean it doesn't say mezzo?
No,
or
it does not say
contralto,
mezzo.
It says
No,
soprano.
in recent years, or in years, it has become. But for me, it presents not the difficulty because, as you know, I have a bottom voice, and I certainly have no difficulty going up to a B flat or B. I think I'm doing that right now because of all I've sung Aida so many times. Amneris to me is a wonderful characterization. It's a wonderful dramatic role. And this to me is very important as a performer. At this point in my life, I want to do something that gives a total performance.
The popular perception is that your voice climaxes on notes above high C and on notes at the opposite end, your chest tones. Here you're undertaking a role which, if I recall correctly, doesn't go higher than B flat. Therefore, you're singing a part, it's true of Salome as well, there's nothing of B flat there. You're singing parts, though the tessitura may be somewhat higher in Salome, you're singing parts which don't give rein to your climax notes.
Well, the point being that one grows as an artist, and perhaps the voice, as you say, the voice that is not attributed to me has gained, and that there are parts of my voice that are now able to be accepted.
But Salome, for example, calls for very little chest, other than perhaps on that infamous low, was it G flat?
Yes. And there are other parts too. There are other parts where you can go into it. Certainly when she's over the sister and the beginning part, there are certain places where you can.
You must have had occasion to ask yourself, are you really putting your best foot forward, undertaking roles which don't give you the...
Let me put it this way. I do not do roles that I feel will put me in any kind of negative light. I feel I have something to offer it. And if I feel I have something to offer a role, I will do it. If I don't, I don't.
What about the sheer physical sensation of socking out those high notes and the chest notes too?
Well, one keeps oneself in shape, hopefully. I do. I take myself very seriously as an artist. I've never smoked in my life. I do not drink. I watch what I eat. I work out. I walk 3.5, 4 miles every day. So you keep yourself in shape like any other athlete. You know, singing is an athletic performance. Even just to do an ordinary production, I can't tell you how many productions I've done where I walk up and down steps constantly while I'm singing. You have to know what you're doing. You just don't stumble out onto the stage. You practice it. I've done...
Do you have a staircase at home?
Yes, I do. I walk up and down the stairs.
Practice,
When I was doing the Salome, I would listen to that dance. I tell you, it was coming out of my ears. I would dance that around the house constantly, that my husband would leave in the morning, and I would be at the piano plunking out notes, and he'd come back, not that I did it all day, and I'd still be there doing something with Salome. I worked it out very, very carefully.
Wait, so you're constantly taking your clothing off at home then?
Well, yes,
Yeah.
for certain reasons.
Yeah.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I worked with scarves. The way that particular costume was designed for me, it had a Velcro bib to which 7 veils were attached, and I would just pull off the veils in various parts where they were written into the music. It was very definitely choreographed for me. Salome is not a role that you just step into for somebody else, because you have to have your own dance, obviously. I incorporated Herod into the dance where he would come after me, and it was very well planned out.
This is WKCR-FM 89 in New York, 89.9 on the dial. I'm Stefan Zucker. I'm chatting with soprano Marisa Galvany. We'll be turning to recordings of her in Turandot and Salome presently. Speaking of stepping in, that's how you came to make your Met debut, is it not?
That was quite a day. I was covering the role of Norma for Shirley Verrett, and she wasn't feeling well. But they called me around, I think, 12 noon and said, you might have to go on, but don't come in. And at 5:30, and as you know, I live in New Jersey, 5:30 I received a call, you're going to sing tonight. And I just, as I look back on it, I think to myself, I was very calm under the circumstances, because Norma is not exactly a little role. I had done it. It's not that I wasn't doing it for the first time. And I just got into my car and drove very calmly into the city and got into the house about 6:30. I wore Shirley's costumes, which were pinned to fit me. I wore her shoes, which were somehow made to fit me. The people, I must say, the people backstage at the Metropolitan Opera are the finest people some of the finest people I've worked with. The makeup man was there, the wig people were there, they were boosting me up, and I had had no orchestra rehearsal, indeed no musical rehearsal. I had walked on the stage, but that was about it. At that point, Miss Dobrazova was singing Adalgiza, her first. We rehearsed the duets for the second and third act 5 minutes before the curtain went up. And the evening went. I don't know if I'd want to do that too much, but after all, one is a professional and one is prepared. I think the people around me were hysterical, knowing what was going on. I do know that the florist on 72nd Street wanted to know who I was, because he received so many orders that he sold out his flowers, because the word just went out like, you know, the world of opera. It's like the drums started beating and people knew far and wide that I was singing.
When was this?
In 1979.
When you've been in the second cast or covering at the Met, have you ever had a stage rehearsal? Have you ever had an orchestra rehearsal? Can you recall an instance where they actually gave you one of those? Not offhand.
No.
I know of one or two strange circumstances where, not through any planning, but usually because the person in the first cast didn't show, or there's some vicissitude or other, members of second casts and cover singers even...
I prefer to call it alternate casts.
All right. Got to do rehearsals, sometimes stage rehearsals, sometimes an orchestra rehearsal at the Met. What is your feeling about walking on stage there without rehearsal?
Well, certainly you wouldn't choose to do this. However, if you're hired as a cover, it is your responsibility to know the role, to watch the rehearsals that you can on stage. We get rehearsals in very large rooms and very often on the actual sets. Not on stage, of course, but in the sea-level stage. It's not what you would consider to be your choice always, but, my dear, it's your responsibility, and you do it. And if you're professional and you know your work, you do it.
For some singers I've interviewed, rehearsing at the Met more often than not involves simply singing along backstage as the sounds of the first cast are wafted over the speakers. You get to sing along with them.
That has not applied to me. I've had rehearsal.
You've had rehearsal.
I've worked with, of course, in the Norma, I didn't have a chance to work with Maestro Mogg because it was such a last-minute thing, but... I probably would have worked with... See, this was the first performance of the season. You will probably work with them after, but I've always rehearsed with most of the cast, and the conductor, and the stage director.
It escapes me how one can have musical expression under those circumstances. Coherence, maybe, if all are competent and if there aren't too many surprises or difficulties in the music, things can be held together more or less. Expression, however, musical expression is distinguished from dramatic expression. Musical expression embodying rubato, inflections of tempo, surely must fall by the wayside.
It all depends on the conductor. If you have a very sensitive conductor who knows you, maybe 8 out of the 10 things you want to do will come across. Maybe the 9th and the 10th won't. But then again, sometimes in a performance you rehearse, that doesn't happen. Again, it's not the optimum thing, but we don't make choices in this world, and you do what you are trained to do. And if not, go home and sing in your house.
Do you find yourself sometimes with your nose right at the fog machine inadvertently? Do you find them spraying fog? Do you find one of those smoke?
Oh, I see what you mean physically.
Yeah.
Well, that has happened to me certainly at City Opera. I've had rehearsals, for instance, in Tosca in the Te Deum scene. The incense gets on the stage, and you have all you can do to finish your scene on the stage. Certainly, that happens.
Even with rehearsal.
Even with rehearsal. This is what makes a live performance a live performance.
That the soprano is choking because of...
It happens. There are certain things that happen on stage. If you're going to go crazy every time something happens, you cannot ever predict. Certainly when one walks on the stage, one hopefully has one's own thing under control where you know what you're going to do. But when you're working with an orchestra, with 5 or 6 different colleagues, with a conductor, with a physical set, you don't know what is exactly going. Listen, I had an experience where I did Aida, and the particular man in charge wanted live animals in every portion of the opera that he could possibly have. And I was standing in the wings in the 3rd act waiting for the Nile scene. And Rumpus and Amneris were, before they go into the temple to pray, and they had the camel with them. And the poor camel must have had a terrible stomach because he just befouled 3/4 of the stage. And naturally, they didn't bring the curtain down, and I had to come out and sing this gorgeous aria in which every word is about her homeland, which she will never see again, and you know that the Italian words for never again are my pew. And I kept saying my pew, and the audience was absolutely hysterical because here where the stage was just covered. But what does one do? You just keep singing. So I think short of having the scenery fall down on your head, I have done Tosca performances where I somehow got lost making my stage cross backstage after the cantaria, and I walked past the windows of Baron Scarpia's apartment on the 2nd or 3rd floor, and that people saw me. Things happen. They're live, and they happen. I think that you go out on stage always, even if you're thoroughly rehearsed. People step on hems. You bump into somebody. A chorister is not in the right place. You cannot let these things throw you. You just have to hope that you have been prepared in your own mind psychologically and mentally to do it.
Do you find yourself becoming enraged? Do you find that things like that grab your consciousness?
At the time of the performance, my feeling is that the performance, what you're doing at the performance, must be done. If a colleague holds a note, you push it sort of in the back of your head. I don't think you must let anything interfere with the emotion of what you're doing at the time, because anything, as you know, can detract from the voice. You must think of what you're doing vocally and into the character of the personage on the stage. I think you must not let anything detract at the moment. I think people who do are not really giving, certainly you've been to the opera yourself, where you're watching a performance and you say, well, they're not the person who they're supposed to be. Certainly, I've walked out of performances where people are not doing anything. I think that you must become the person you are on stage and not let anything interfere with it.
What else have you done at the Met?
Well, this year I did The Mother in Hansel and Gretel on tour. I did Ortrud.
Now, wait a second. Why
in
the
Lohengrin.
Mother in Hansel?
Because they asked me to do it, and I was on the tour, and it was something fun to learn. I enjoyed doing it. It was wonderful. The kids were so happy. It was fun to do. You don't do everything with an eye, well, is this going to make me famous here, and am I going to do that? I was on the tour, and it was something they asked me to. Certainly it wasn't challenging in any way. It was fun to do. I enjoyed it. And it was a happy experience. I worked with Tom Fulton, whom I had never worked with before, and we had a very good rapport. In that sense, I worked with people with the Metropolitan Opera whom I did not know, and I think that was a wonderful experience.
What else? The Mother and...
And I did my first Ortrud in Lohengrin.
How did that work out?
This was also certainly out of left field. I wasn't intending to do Ortrud in Lohengrin, but it was my first Wagner role.
It's the engagement they gave you, in essence.
Well, it really came about from, as I say, from left field, but I sang it for Jimmy. He wanted to hear it, and he liked what he heard. And I thought it was a wonderful challenge. I love the role. Certainly Elsa has beautiful things to sing, but as a character, Ortrud is a wonderful part. Oh, the music is wonderful.
Bereft of high E flats.
Well, look, again, you know, people hear Marisa Galvany and they say E flats. I sing a few other notes. There are a few other notes in my range. I sing E flats when I feel that they will enhance the role, when they are a part of the performance, when they will add excitement to the performance. I certainly feel I can sing a performance without an E flat and certainly give a worthwhile performance. After all, one does Tosca, one doesn't interpolate E flats in Tosca.
How high Tosca has what, at least 4 high Cs?
But they're not E flats.
How high do you go?
To vocalize?
Yeah.
I vocalize comfortably on a good day to F above high C, but I never fail to vocalize to an E.
What's the highest note you've used in performance? I think
E flat. No, there was an E in Nabucco.
Medea. Wait, I seem to recall you lofting an E
in Medea in Corinto, but in Nabucco also.
On the subject of Medea in Corinto, you had said, and I dissented, that the creator of the part was Giuditta Pasta. Came a call from Kenneth Stern. He has completed a biography of Giuditta Pasta. It, with luck, will be published.
My information
that
it was created for her.
Well,
but I'm certainly
be that as it may.
I accede to Mr. Stern.
Is a great
I do not question it.
Admirer of my guest, Marisa Galvany. How did the Yenufa come to pass? Oh, wait. You have sung it in performance. How low do you go?
How low do I vocalize? G below middle C.
And in Salome, you've used a G flat.
Yeah, see, unfortunately, in Salome, by the time you reach that point in the opera, you really have done a lot of singing, and emotionally you have done a lot. Perhaps it's not as well put as you do when you're vocalizing because of the emotion. Because in the emotion that you're singing, you can do a lot of shading on the note that you wouldn't do if you were just vocalizing it.
Did you always have these notes, or did they come as a result of study?
Well, they were in my voice, but I never knew they were there. Until, believe it or not, I used to sing things like Michaela's role, and I Know That My Redeemer Liveth. And I went to work with my present teacher, Armand Boyajian, and at the time I started to work with him. he said to me, I don't think you're using your whole voice. He said, I think there's notes on either side that you don't know exist. And indeed they did.
How did the Yennefer come to be? You'll be doing that in early October,
Yes.
I believe. At the
Well, the Metropolitan
said you
offered
would
it
be
to
doing
me.
Aida as well, Amneris, but that's not at the
No,
Met.
that's not at the
in
Met.
Cincinnati. The Met offered you.
Kostelnička in Janufa. Again, it's a very dramatic role that can be sung by mezzo, but it's a tough role. It's not an easy role. The play from which the opera was adapted, Kostelnička, is the central character. Her foster daughter is what the original play was. It's a very dramatic role. It's a tough role. It's again one of these ladies that I do that is a tragic lady, but has B's in it. It's got a C. It's got a lot of very dramatic singing, beautiful singing.
Linda Ryan, a listener, wanted to know why Behrens dropped out.
I'm afraid I don't know that. I have no idea.
Wasn't somebody else originally slated to do Kostelnička, and then she died? Who was that?
Then she died?
Was there somebody who...
I really don't know.
Oh,
yes.
Has
Oh,
been
yes.
through some...
That's, oh, yes, of course. That's my very, very, very close dear friend, Gwyn Cornell.
Uh-huh. What happened there with her?
She was ill. She died of leukemia. And she knew I was going to do these roles. We were very, very close. And she was slated to do the Ortrud, but she was so ill she couldn't do it.
Shall we turn to In Questa Regia, or in honor of Vera Kalupe Borsk, who may be listening, In Questa Regia?
Well, again, this role was suggested to me by Jim DeBlaze from Cincinnati. And when I went, I must say, I do not accept any roles until my teacher and I go over it and decide that it's comfortable and that I won't be killing myself to do it, that every note is feasible and that we can work it. When I went out to Cincinnati, everybody said to me, aren't you afraid of being compared to this and being compared to that? And don't you feel you're on the top, ready to fall down into a chasm? And I think that if people would only realize that every artist brings their own thing to each role, nobody can sound like anybody else in a particular role. Nor does anybody really want to sound like anybody else in a particular role. I think you must listen to the role, to the artist who's singing it, and their own, what they bring to that particular role. I did not try to sound like a canon. I tried to do it in my own way, my own decibel level. And the excerpt you're about to hear is my first performance ever. I've done quite a few more productions since then. And naturally, when you sing a role for the first time, you don't play with it as much. You just are intent upon doing exactly what you studied, and you don't really relax into the role until you've done a run of them. So that, a first performance really, in anybody's performances, shouldn't be judged on their 10th performances. What you were saying about critics before, sometimes critics hear you early in your career, and they hear you in a way, and they never hear you another way, even though they come to hear you subsequently, and you've changed. So they never change their minds. I think that if people would come to performances realizing that they're seeing an artist who hopefully has grown, sometimes it doesn't happen, and listen to what they're bringing to that particular night, to that particular performance, and not prejudge it. And I'm not talking for myself, I'm talking for artists in general.
We'll turn now to In Questa Regia. This is from Marisa Galvany, my guest, in Questa Regia from Turandot. Well, What of Salome? You've got that waiting here.
Yes,
this
that was,
time?
as I said,
Yeah.
in 1982. I did it for the first time.
Shall we play that?
That should be in place, yes.
Oh, mustn't forget, Roy Ehrenreich called to ask what of the pirates, people who come in and tape your performances, sometimes just for their own purposes, on other occasions for commercial use. Do you feel you're being ripped off?
Not really. I think that people who come to my performances who care enough and who are enthusiastic enough to do that and to enjoy it, I've achieved a great many fans. I've gained many fans. I've arrived in places that I've never been, for instance, and people have heard me through tapes. So they already are prepared and have become very enthusiastic about my performances before even having heard me. I'm always very flattered and touched by fans' devotions, and I don't feel negatively about it at all.
I know that Mr. Tape has a 4-volume set of Marisa GALVANY. I think Dave Weinberg markets Marisa GALVANY, Charlie Handelman, quite a few others. You've, for some years, been a hot item on the underground pirate circuit.
I'm called the Queen of the Underground. I think that if they are getting money for it, that's fine. Certainly, I'm not going to get rich in this business. I'd have to work till I'm 75 to make up what I've spent in training. If I give pleasure to people and they are enthusiastic about my performances, I think that's great. I know that sounds probably very Pollyannish, but part of my success as a performer is the fact that I love to communicate with people. And I think that even if people don't like my voice, they have never failed to admit that my performances are honest, they're what I believe in, what I'm doing, and that I create an excitement. And if I can bring that to people, that's what I'm a singer for. It's that simple.
The phone number here is 212-280-5223, also 5224 and 5225. We'll be listening to Marisa GALVANY in what will be, I think, the final scene, the Schlussszene from Salome. Should you...
Again, the first performance ever.
Should you care to ask questions or make comments while that's being played, do feel free to phone in. 212-280-5223. 5 killed by them soldiers. That was my guest, Marisa GALVANY, in the Schlussszene from Salome. I'm Stefan Zucker. You're listening to WKCR FM in New York. Some listener comments. Lou Stewart has Marisa GALVANY's Norma from the Met, as well as a GALVANY Nabucco on videotape. He asks you, Marisa GALVANY, what's your favorite Upper East Side Italian restaurant?
Diva, naturally Diva.
Yes.
Especially the osso buco and the chocolate dessert.
Well, I was once at a New Year's party at Lou Stewart's, and he showed some video cassettes. I remember he portrayed Salome to someone else's singing, as well as several other parts.
Well, food is delicious at Diva Restaurant, and I heartily recommend it. Hi, Lou.
Let's see, Stuart Manville called in. Stuart Manville, of course, is a critic for Opera Magazine. He heard you at Philharmonic Hall. Saul York was in the first row.
That's going back. Wow.
He asks bluntly, Marisa GALVANY, why are you not a major recording artist?
Is he asking me the question? I would love to be a major recording artist. You'll have to ask the powers that be that.
Well, he says, I'm grateful for pirates under the
So am I.
circumstances. Yes.
More power to them.
Well, let's see. We have Ed Bowley, who from Queens, who said of you, she's charming, open, honest, objective, and modest. However, she should receive compensation. Those pirates are illegal.
Look, I cannot certainly track down everybody that comes to a performance. I am so pleased and flattered and happy that I reach an audience and that they like what I do and come backstage and see me. I have, in addition to having these people as fans, I have made a great many friends, and I thank your gentleman that called. I understand what he says, but since I have no control over it, there's really little I can do, and I'm not really unhappy about it, really.
Well, he measured your E flat. It was about 8 seconds in the Aida excerpt. He himself can only sustain high A for 6 seconds.
Well, I must say I have a longer one. It was a Sunday afternoon at New York City Opera, and at the end of the Queen Elizabeth scene in the third act, I held an E flat for 19 beats.
How many seconds would that have been?
Gee, I don't know, but it was 19 musical beats.
Let's see. Stuart Manville, continuing, said that Turner, Dame Eva Turner, had a lean sound. You have a fleshed out sound. Mm-hmm. People have trouble getting used to it.
That's right. I'm not saying that they don't.
Well, what kind of trouble do they have?
Again, it's a voice that is not a pretty chirpy bird sound. It is not going to caress their ears with silver golden sound. I have never made a statement that I was. I wouldn't say it's an ugly voice. It is a different kind of sound. You have to get used to listening to it. However, I promise that if you do see it in a performance, you will understand what is being done. It is not a manufactured sound. I was told from the beginning of my life as a singer that the sound was not going to be to everybody's liking, and that I had to get used to that. And indeed, sometimes it's been hard for me to accept what has been said about it, but I thank heaven I'm over that, and I can only sing with what I have, sing with what I have honestly, sing how I believe, and not listen to every person that tells me how I should sing. The only person to whom I listen as far as how I should sing is my teacher, Armand Boyajian, with some advice from other people perhaps, but we do what we can with what we have.
What have people told you about your sound?
Oh, no, not told me. I've heard that, particularly on the use as the chest tone, as you have said, she shouldn't do that. I must tell you that people, and I use the word people, I don't know people, but they've been predicting my vocal demise since the day I started to sing professionally. And indeed, my voice is stronger now. I think it's better aligned. And I appreciate the people's interest and that they think enough to comment. But they are entitled to their opinions, as I am to mine.
Frederick Leonard of Jamaica phoned to say that Tucker introduced you to him. No, I'm awfully sorry. No. It's Ed Rose.
Oh, Ed Rosen, of
Ed
course.
Rosen's comment.
Yes.
Tucker introduced you to him as Tucker's Jewish daughter before the Shuiv performance. You did a wonderful job, and he sends his best wishes. He's
Hello,
a
Ed.
fan.
He's a very, very good fan. I appreciate it.
Well, Is he one of those of whom Ed Bowley was complaining? Is he profiting off of your work?
I don't know if he's profiting.
He's pirating.
I haven't seen his statement as of late, but I suppose he does. He issue things that he's heard me do.
Well, I don't mean to defend piracy. However, it's a mistake to think that it's a gold mine. The average pirate pressing is 500 discs. Sometimes a disc will go into a second pressing, a few go into multiple pressings, but it's very rare. Usually they sell just a few.
You won't get an
copies.
argument from me. I do not think of them negatively at all. I think they're my friends. I give them pleasure, and they wouldn't be doing it. They wouldn't be taping me if they didn't care about me, and I think that's wonderful.
Anthony, by the way, the tri-state area is hearing you bang that pencil.
Sorry.
Anthony Vandelinda called to say that he's seen you in virtually all of your city opera roles. You, Marisa Galvany, are exciting.
Thank you.
Does the overuse of chest voice on the part of Renata Scotto harm the rest of her voice and cause her to sing flat? Compare Scotto's and your use of chest, he asks.
I really can't do that. I would not presume to talk about the way another person sings. Absolutely. I cannot do that. If I were having a discussion with Renata in person when we're talking about vocal problems and techniques, we would talk to each other. I would never, ever presume to talk about another singer. As a matter of fact, I have been on jobs with singers, and they start analyzing voices and each other's voices, and I really do not go in for this. I don't think it's proper to tell another singer, indeed a performer like Renata Scotto, anybody, how to sing. I would never, ever presume. Unless somebody came directly to me and asked me in privacy, what do I think? Perhaps even then not. I think the way a singer sings is their very own personal territory. And I think what they do to make them successful, to make them perform, to get them out on stage. You know, I have to say something, and this is not directed to this particular person who called. It's directed at everybody. You know, it is very easy to sit in an audience and say how somebody should sing a certain phrase or how long somebody should hold a certain note. There are so many factors that go into a performance that you do not know anything about. Indeed, I have worked with colleagues who's have had terrible, terrible personal problems when they've gone out on stage. They've had illness in the family. They've had, indeed, I worked with my dear friend and colleague Harry Thaird when his son was killed in an accident, and he did 2 wonderful performances. You don't know this. Therefore, I think sometimes you go to see a performance of a particular artist whom you perhaps like very much, and they're having an off night that you don't think they did what you think they should do. Don't be so quick to judge and to say, oh my goodness, he or she has lost this, or he or she has not doing this. Give them a second chance, really. We are really human beings, even though sometimes people think we're not. And I think that for one singer to tell another singer how to sing is a terrible presumption, and I would never do such a thing.
Well, Mr. Vandelinda declared for you, Marisa Galvany, to use chest is legitimate because your voice is completely different from Scotto's, and you use it musically and for dramatic purposes. He plainly disapproves of Scotto's employment of it.
Well, certainly, listening to someone's voice is a very personal thing. It's like looking at a painting. I would not take away his opinion. He has certainly a right to what he thinks. I'm sure he's an opera lover, an opera goer. You know, I wouldn't argue with him, yes or no. He has a right to feel what he does. If he feels that he doesn't like it, and I'm not saying in Miss Scotto's case, in any case, if it makes you uncomfortable, well, then I guess you can't see that artist. But certainly you have every right in the world to feel what you do about any person's voice. It's a very personal thing. You know, you can hear anything, and it might bother your ear. The decibel level might bother your ear. Perhaps you don't like the way somebody phrases something that you've heard. For instance, in the opera Norma, I don't know of anyone who sings Norma that is not very nervous to start with, because everybody in the audience has every bit in their ear how Casta Diva should be sung, and it's never ever sung the way they think it should be sung. Fine, that's wonderful, but I don't think that any singer can say to another singer, well, I sang it this way, you should sing it this way. You know, if you make a singer sound like another singer, you can ruin somebody's voice.
On the subject of Norma, do you have an opinion as to what key the cavatina works best in?
In my voice, it's with the key down. I can't do it in the original key.
Yeah, that part was written for Giuditta Pasta. She didn't like it. She was uncomfortable with it. Eventually, she and Bellini, the cavatina that is Casta Diva, she and Bellini compromised and transposed it in some key. Some scores it's printed in one key, and some in the other. It's customarily sung. I believe it's a whole step.
I don't know of anybody except Sutherland. I believe Sutherland sings it in the original key today. Anyway, I don't know of anyone who does.
I think. Did Callas try it once and abandon it? I'm not sure.
If she did, I don't know.
Roy Ehrenreich called in to mention that there was another soprano around the turn of the century.
Maria Galvany.
Yes. And he asks, your name, after all, was chosen for the stage.
That's right.
Did you take it on account of her?
No, I did not. As a matter of fact, I had a friend who gave me the name, and originally I spelled it with an I. I did not know about Maria Galvany until after I changed my name and found out she was a Spanish soprano, and it's a Catalonian name. And I heard her on records. It's a very interesting sound, I must say.
World's fastest staccato.
I don't know anybody's chords can approximate as fast as she does.
Malcolm Gordon called in to
Malcolm, yes.
declared Marisa Galvany's wonderful and articulate. I'm her admirer. I hope one day she performs Electra.
Well, that we are going to put in the future, too. Four Salomes do not an Electra make. I think you have to be very careful in the progression of your roles. I don't think that if you sing one type thing by a composer, you can go on and sing everything else. Plus the fact, it has to be what you're singing around such performances. Electra is a buster. And you don't do this unless you're very carefully singing something else earlier and something else later. And also in the particular house. You know, a very big house, it's tough.
Now, we're out of Marisa Galvany on tape. She brought a certain number of things. Charlie Handelman furnished some other things. What I would welcome doing is going to name the voice, and perhaps the question presented itself, what on earth is name the voice? Well, sometimes we go for some length of time without doing it, and thereby elicit an outcry. Name the voice. When you need it, you need it. And I wouldn't know myself, but I'm told that it has that in common with perversions generally. This has been much discussed here. Several have come forward to declare themselves named the voice perverts. Roy Ehrenreich, who's phoned twice here, will no doubt phone again. He is a self-proclaimed named the voice pervert. Russ Tyser is the king of kink. There are others out there too. Anyway, the way the perversion works
As the audience so far.
Well, should you have questions for Marisa Galvany or about what's percolating now?
Well, of course, I would like to continue singing for a few more years. My voice is going in interesting, or rather the roles are going in interesting directions. I think that a singer has to be open, able to receive things that are new, perhaps, and maybe a little frightening, a little more challenging. I think that if you stop and only sing 5 or 6 roles for which you are known, you get rather stale. And an instance with that, I was doing Toscas several years back, so many Toscas, one right after another, that I told my agent that I couldn't do any more Toscas for several years because I felt I wasn't bringing enough freshness to it. Because in spite of different directors, different conductors, different colleagues, there are just so many things one can do with any given role. I think that as a performer, I hope that I will always have the intelligence to know when to do a role, when not to do a role. I hope that I can bring to the public something that will make them want to come back to see me. Not that they will ever come and say, oh, she's going to do that again. I hope that they will be able to understand any new directions in which I go. I hope they will understand that someday my E-flats will cease to be, and hopefully, not yet, thank heavens, but hopefully that they will find enough in my total performance to understand that I'm still bringing something that will make them want to come to hear me. And I hope that I'm given the years to do more that I can.
As a Neris, do you, on the subject of roles without E-flats, to try to sound more mezzo-like?
No, I am not approaching this. As a matter of fact, when my manager came to hear me do Ortrud in Lohengrin, he said to me, you did not do anything different than you did when you sang any other role. I sang it as Marisa Galvany would sing it. I do not try to sound like anything or anybody. I never, never, never try to manufacture a sound to fit it to what I think or what anybody else thinks the role should be. I sing it the way I do it.
Recently, we've heard Cosotto as Amneris.
Mm-hmm.
People probably assume that that sort of sound is appropriate to the role. If you were doing a role that people did not have such preconceptions about, you wouldn't have to reckon with the question, well, is she really an Amneris? Mm-hmm. Whether even if the role were conceived as a soprano counterpart to Aida, the fact is that for this century it has been a mezzo part. What about all those preconceptions?
Well, I can only tell you, for instance, the first time I tackled the role of Lady Macbeth, the comments that I got, both through me, through my teacher, through other fans, were, well, to boil it down, oh my dear, you're going to kill yourself. You will never get through that role. And I will listen.
I'm always felt this way?
No, not my teacher. No. But comments were made to him. I always sort of chuckle because I let my voice, you know, the ad, let your fingers do the walking. I let my voice do the singing and the talking. And people come back afterwards and say, my dear, I never thought you could do it. And that's fine, because that has been my lot in life. It seems to be, I always have to sort of go out with my armor strapped very well on and convince people if it's something that they don't think I should be doing or I could possibly do. I think it's kind of fun because I go out with rather determination to say, yes, I can do it. It makes my performance more exciting, I think.
When are the Yennefer performances?
Well, I will be covering a lot of them, but my particular performances are October 5th, which is a Saturday night, and October 12th, which is a Saturday matinee.
Saturdays are bad days for me. Don't go on to the Saturday evening performance, but do check her out on the 12th.
I do want to say that I'm very pleased to have heard from some of these people whom I know very well, some whom I do not. I would be very happy if when I sing in New York, these people would come back to see me. Sometimes audiences and public feel that they are disturbing the artists. They don't want to come back. They don't want to bother them. I think I'm very happy to receive people, and I always love to hear what they say and if they're happy. That's part of the business as far as I'm concerned, meeting my public. Because without my public, I could stay in New Jersey and sing for my husband. He'd be very happy. But I think that I'm always amused, for instance, with movie stars particularly, where they get so taken with themselves that they get very annoyed if people approach them. And I just feel that that's tough because without a public, an artist really isn't much. And I'm very happy always to meet people. And I'd be very happy if they would come back to see me.
Well, thanks for having been with us, and let's keep in touch.
I certainly hope so, and thank you again very much. It's been very enjoyable.
Marisa GALVANY, I think we'll stay here for just a few moments more. Should any of you have questions.